Welcome back. We're going to keep considering the design of this scatter plot that we're looking at here, but we're going to shift our focus to understanding how we can control the fonts that we see. And so the focus is on how we control the appearance of the font. And the first thing I'll say is that we're going to see the use of several different font families. You should go read the article for this course that deals with font to understand exactly what I'm talking about. But if you would like to find other fonts and install them on your computer so that you can use them as well, you can go to Font Squirrel. And in Font Squirrel, you have the ability to look through and find fonts that you might want to use. They also have classifications, so you can look for sans serif fonts, you can look for monospaced fonts, you can look for fonts that fit like a particular aesthetic, like grunge or black letter, and use that to acquire fonts that have the look that you would like. Let's say you find a font that you think looks interesting, like this quicksand font. If you click on it, it'll take you to examples of the different bases that exist within it. And you can also go to test drive and type in something. So here is some text, and it will show you what that looks like rendered in this font. Something else that's important, if you go read the section on font or the website for this course, is looking at the individual glyphs, because you might want to ensure that a specific symbol that you're interested in is present within that font. So for me, it's very important that fonts have a nice set of Greek glyphs, because I use a lot of Greek symbols when I'm representing my own data. And so if I was going to try to create a plot that was going to use the sort of scientific data that my lab generates, I wouldn't use this font because I don't see any of the Greek glyphs here. If I was doing something where I wasn't going to be making plots that were going to be scientific data, then maybe this would be a fine one. Okay. And then if you want to know how to install this, well, first you would download it, and then it depends on your specific system, Windows or Apple. And so you can look up instructions on how you would install fonts once they're downloaded from this site. But this is a nice site to come get fonts. Okay, let's go back to the figure. And we're missing one component of fonts that we will use a lot in this course, and that's for annotations. So let's just go ahead and add an annotation. So we have that fig.add annotation text equals, this is the, let's pull up the 50-50 line. That's going to be the black line. And we don't need to have an arrow. So I'll say show arrow equals false. And then we need to have it be in a reasonable position. It can be anywhere on this 50-50 line, probably in the upper left. And so we can say X equals, let's put it at, how about 300 and 1,000, and Y is 300,000. And then let's have the X anchor be on the right, and the Y anchor on the bottom, and that will put it up in the upper right or upper left. So this is the 50-50 line. Okay, so now we have a series of textual elements, and we want to understand how we're going to control those. So first off, if what we want to do is just control the overall appearance of the font, like every single one of these elements to have exactly the same changes, we can do that straight up within this update layout. We use font as the keyword argument that we supply. This is going to be a dictionary, just like we're used to using dictionaries to specify different aspects of a component within Plotly by now. And then let's say we wanted to change the font family. So we'll say family, and then we have to give the name of a font. So let's pick a monospaced font that would probably be on most computers, Courier. And if I run this, you'll get this sort of old school typewriter looking font. That's what Courier looks like. And you'll see that every single element in here has been changed to Courier. We can also control the size. And so let's say the size, this is again in pixels. So you have to think about the sort of overall size of your figure and then how large you want the font to look with respect to that. So this is 500 by 500, and let's just see what sort of like a regular 12 pixel font would look like. All right, kind of normal to what we had. Let's make this 3 times larger and see what it looks like. Okay, so now you can see that we've scaled up everything in response to this. But one thing that remains is that there's still some components, like the axis title is larger than the tick mark font, and that the overall title is larger still. So this base font size here that we're specifying in update layout sort of specifies the size of one of these components, and then everything is built around that particular size. So let's go back, maybe 14 will look nice. Kind of like that size. Let's say that we wanted to change the color. We know how to do that as well. We can specify the color, we can give it a hex value, or we can also give it a named value. We've seen that we could use silver before. This is going to gray out all of our font. And so the font sort of like fades into the background. I think it looks a little silly if we don't also change all the axis lines and things like that in response, but yeah, we can change this. We could have everything be red if we wanted it to be obnoxious. So let's go back to black in this case. Keep it, well, I guess we're trying to show that we can control things, so we'll make it red. All right, what else could we do? Well, let's say that we wanted to adjust one font in particular. All right, so for instance, we wanted the annotation to have a different font. What we would say is go to the annotation, say font equals, and then this is again a dictionary, and let's say the family is Arial. Most computers maybe. Let's have Calibri. And now what you can see is that we've changed the font here to be the sans serif font that is common on most computers, because probably most computers will have something like Microsoft Office installed that comes with this font, Calibri. All right. There's other fonts we can put in, like, I don't know, I kind of like Century Gothic, although I think only PCs come with this. And there's Century Gothic now for the font. We can go ahead and also change the size. So we could say size, in this case, let's just see what happens when we also make it 14. So you can see this didn't really change. It's kind of the base font is the annotation, but we could make it big. Let's make it stand out, 24. We could also make it a different color. I'll make this one blue. Okay, so this is how you would go in and control the different components of font that are produced, like the different places that we have it. We could do the same thing by going in and changing the title font family, or the tick mark font family within the ticks, or the axis titles. And so you can explore this on your own. I'm not going to spend time to show us how to do this. Now that we know that we can adjust things individually, you can read the documentation, you can work with AI to figure out how to adjust all of those individually. Just know that you can. I want to think about this title for a second and what else we might be able to do to the title besides just change color, size, things like that. Right now, you can see that the title spans 2 lines. Or sorry, right now we can see that the title is too big to fit on the plot. And so what we would like to do is introduce a return. But how do we do that? I can see S&P 500 and Dow Jones indices. Maybe that's where I would want it. If I try to just like naively put this in and hit return, I get an error, because this is a not well formatted function call, even though I'm trying to put in this return. Something that you can do is you can have multi-line strings by starting and ending them with triple quotes. So repeat quotes, either double quotes or single quotes 3 times. And what we can see is that we've introduced a line break inside the string, but actually Plotly doesn't know how to handle that. And the reason why, and we mentioned this very early on when we started talking about Plotly, it's sort of the default package of JavaScript for visualizing things. And JavaScript is for making documents for the web. And so the underlying formatting that is used is the formatting for the web, or HTML. So what we can do inside of these strings, let's go back to just a single line string here. Is we can, I'll rerun this so we're back to what we started with. We can introduce the commands that are in HTML for line breaks. And the command for a line break in HTML is the angle bracket and then this /BR close angle bracket. If I go ahead and run this, what you'll find is I now have overlapping text, and I haven't looked into what the parser is doing when it's interpreting these commands in Plotly, but basically you need to have the whole thing start with a line break if we're going to use any line breaks. And now you can see that we have this on 2 different lines. And if we wanted it to look good, we could focus on adjusting its position, right? So for instance, we already know this. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time, but let's just like make a good faith effort at trying to adjust this real quick. Okay, so now we would have this title spanning 2 lines aligned on the y-axis. That looks pretty good. What if we wanted to emphasize something, like we wanted Dow Jones to really stand out? Maybe what you're used to doing is making it italic or bold, and it turns out that HTML also has commands for that. So the command for bold is B, and so typically when we want to contain a part of text and give that part of text a behavior, we use open and closing tags for this. And so we would have the open tag is B, the close tag is /B. And when we have line breaks, we don't have to open and close it. We just need the closing one. That's why that works. So enclosing this between these B flags will make Dow Jones bold. We could also make it italics, and the flag for this is I. And so we have an italics Dow Jones. And we can also nest these, so we can have bold and italics if we wanted. And now we have a bold italics Dow Jones. So that's how you can add this sort of like very specific styling, borrowing from HTML. And so if you want to know what else you can do with text, you can go look up the different formatting that's present within these HTML tags and just apply it directly within Plotly. Because again, it's just basically trying to make an HTML document, so it knows how to parse these sorts of commands. And with that, this is how we adjust and change text. And hopefully you enjoy being able to use this to really precisely tune the use of text within your data visualizations.